Some historians tell us that about 30,000 plus years ago, something occurred in the history of our evolution called the cognitive revolution. There are other revolutions that occurred, the age of agriculture, about 12,000 years ago, the industrial age, 300-400 years ago, and now the information age, maybe even 100 years ago. But the most pivotal of these was something called the cognitive revolution. And we're also told that until then, there were about 8 different human species, the human family. So we are Homo sapiens, gave ourselves that name, means the wise ones. We gave ourselves that name out of humility, but then we gave names to other species, Neanderthals, Floroensis, etc. And then apparently at this time, all humans had a language only for 3 things: food and danger and sex, because these 3 things are necessary for survival. But then one species, us, we created a language for telling stories. And with stories, including gossip, money, and other stories, latitude, longitude, Greenwich Mean Time, etc., we actually created what we now call the human civilization, all a result of language and storytelling, which created, of course, what we call human constructs. And now we are at a stage where actually we confuse human constructs with fundamental reality that allowed us to create human constructs. And that fundamental reality, of course, is consciousness or awareness. But now let's talk about language for a little bit, because if you understand the power of language, you understand the power that created not only human civilization, but can take us to the next step in our evolution. What is language? Language is the symbolic representation, I believe, of our experiences and the ability to communicate them. And so, of course, there's oral language, which is the symbolic representation of experience and the ability to communicate that through sound. There's written language. Oral language is now, about 30,000 years. And written language is only 5,000 years. And with the creation of language, the human brain expanded, the cerebral cortex expanded. So there's a clue here. The brain doesn't produce language. Language produces the brain. Of course, there are centers in the brain for language, but they are neural correlates of language. And the more we use language, the more we actually expand our ability to create neural networks to express language. But here's a very important point. The brain does not produce language. Language produces the brain. Of course, I know many people will disagree with this. So be it. So there's oral language, there's written language, which is the symbolic representation of experience and the ability to communicate it through basically squiggles, symbolic representations, and they're different in different areas of the world. Same concepts, same ideas, different squiggles and different sounds. And then there's body language and sign language and all that. But let's stick just with the most remarkable understanding here is the ability of consciousness to use just about anything that we have in our biology to create language. Let's take oral language. I'm communicating to you right now through words and sounds. So what is this? It's the vibration of air over here through the vocal cords. So I decide I have to say something to you, and then I say it. And this thing here starts to vibrate, transmits vibration of air molecules, which then hits the tympanic membrane and, causes some disturbance in the cilia, the hairs, which sends an electrical impulse to the brain. Electrochemistry happens, and boom, you're understanding what I'm saying. And same thing if I use sign language or written language, the input is through the five senses, okay? In the case of written language, through the eyes. And in the case of body language, also through the eyes, and sign language also through the eyes. But the final pathway is the same: electrical current or action potential in the brain, electrochemical activity, and voila, we have communicated with each other. So how this happens, how does electricity and electrochemistry do this, is part of the hard problem of consciousness. And I think we've got the model wrong. So that's why the two fundamental questions in science, the two most open questions can't be answered. What's the universe made of? And what is the biological basis of consciousness? So here's the correction we need. The universe is consciousness. It's not made of consciousness. You can say that, but it is. Formless consciousness is infinite possibilities, irreducible, fundamental, without cause, spaceless, timeless, unimaginable, non-perceivable, non-conceptualizable, but a field of infinite possibilities, infinite correlation, unpredictability, creativity, and the source of attention and intention. That's consciousness. And it's formless. So formless consciousness is fundamental reality. And the form that consciousness assumes is the universe. But even the universe is a species-specific experience. My universe is different than a dolphin universe, and or any other species with leaky margins. But now let's go back to language, okay? Consciousness without form is fundamental reality. Consciousness as form is the universe. In Vedanta, this is called Brahman and Brahmand. And your soul is an aspect of the larger cosmic consciousness of Brahmand. So your soul is a microcosm, and the universe you experience is a microcosm. And that universe includes your mind, your body, and the world that goes along with it, and the brain, of course. So isn't it remarkable that we can use breath or air molecules to communicate experience, and then we can use body language to communicate experiences? But here's the fundamental flaw in our current understanding of language, brain, and communication. And that is, we have a physicalist model that is unable to explain any experience, leave alone the ability to communicate the experience. So here's the right model. And it's not something I created. It comes from sages and seers and people who have delved deeply into the nature of experience and the source of all experience. So this is how it starts according to this model. Consciousness, infinite, acausal, fundamental, modifies itself first as feeling. Feeling, the refinement of feeling, is mind. Mind. Mind is a modification of consciousness as it feels its way through the world. And then that feeling creates knowing. That knowing becomes the intellect. Okay, the feeling and the knowing, the mind and the intellect, identify with certain experiences, and that becomes the ego identity. And then this mind, intellect, ego, which is the subtle body, actually moves through prana and becomes the experience of the physical body, the perceptual activity that we call the physical body, all the way from fertilized egg all the way to dusty death. This body is a perceptual activity in consciousness, and this body's perceptual activity corresponds to the perceptual activity of the universe. And all this I can communicate to you just by vibrating the breath. This is the miracle of creation, the miracle of language, the miracle of consciousness, and the miracle of existence. Tell me if this makes sense to you, or should we go back to the old models, Darwinian evolution, random mutations, natural selections. Let's say that was true. Let's say that was all true. How do random mutations end up creating a brain capable of logic and rationality? Just answer that, someone. You see, our current models are not enough to explain any experience. Therefore, we need a radical change in our understanding of reality. Thank you. I'll wait for your feedback.